When my grandfather asked me to choose one of the Johnson brothers for marriage, I picked Ethan, Caleb's older brother. Everyone knew I had been Caleb's shadow since childhood. I once made myself deathly ill begging to marry him with my life. I smiled bitterly remembering my past life. On our wedding day, Caleb ran away with Lily, the girl my family had been supporting, declaring you had married no one but her. I stood there in the wedding dress I had dreamed of for so long, utterly humiliated. Only then did I realize he had agreed to marry me just to get revenge at the wedding. After being reborn, I started avoiding him at every turn. Later, when his brother Ethan held me in his arms and kissed me until my lips were swollen. Caleb, who had always lipped down on me, suddenly lost control of his emotions. After setting the wedding date, I started preparing things we'd need for the ceremony. I didn't expect to run into Caleb and his friends at the mall coming out to play and still keeping such a close eye on her. "Caleb, you're watching your woman way too tightly," his friend teased, causing Caleb to frown in annoyance. "She's not my woman." "Say that again. And also your mouth shut." Caleb spotted me from afar and walked over, clearly displeased. "Arya, when will you give it a rest? Why do you have to follow me everywhere I go? You forced the elders to tie us together. Now everyone knows you're marrying into the Johnson family. Are you satisfied now?" I stayed silent for a moment, my expression calm. "I'm not trying to tie myself to you. You've misunderstood." His emotions suddenly flared up as he gripped my wrist tightly, causing pain. "Then why are you here? Aren't you just stalking me?" I shook off his hand, instinctively rubbing my reddened wrist as I explained. "I'm here to prepare things for the wedding. I didn't expect to run into you." Seeing our unhappy expressions, his friends quickly gathered around. "Preparing for the wedding? Caleb, marrying her sure is convenient. You don't have to prepare anything yourself." Caleb glared at the speaker without responding. "Arya, don't think that just because our families arranged this marriage, you can use these tactics to get me. Even if you get my body, you'll never have my heart. I despise manipulative, vicious women like you the most." His eyes were cold, his voice suppressing anger, but I felt nothing, only wanting to escape this troublesome situation. I looked up and met his gaze calmly. "Who wants your heart? Don't flatter yourself. I won't be marrying you either." Hearing this, Caleb's face immediately fell. "How can you still deny it? At this point, you've always used every trick to force me to marry you. Now that you've finally succeeded, you're saying you won't marry me." His friend bumped his shoulder. "Caleb, can't you tell the little lady is just mad at you? She's saying that out of anger. She's personally out choosing things for the wedding. How can she be happy when you're being so cold and sarcastic to her?" Caleb's expression finally softened a bit. He stared at me with a complex look, finally forcing out a sentence. After a long pause, "I'll show up for the wedding on time. Like I said, don't expect me to ever like you." Suddenly there was a sound of something dropping behind us. Caleb and I turned to see Lily standing there in shock, wearing a cute sundress. She was the foster child my family had been supporting with poor health. She was a frequent hospital patient. My mother felt bad about her poor living conditions and took her in to live with us. She was now dressed up like a delicate doll with fluttering eyelashes over watery eyes. Caleb immediately let go of me and rushed over to her. "Lily, let me explain. It's not what you think." Lily covered her face and ran off, not giving him a chance to explain. Everyone dispersed unhappily after Lily left. Before leaving, Caleb threatened me harshly. "If Lily gets upset over this, I won't let you off easy." I laughed mockingly for a moment, doubting if the childhood friend I grew up with had been possessed by someone else. After that whole scene, I lost interest in continuing to shop, and went home early. It wasn't until evening that Caleb brought Lily back. He was carrying bags of things with his driver, following behind, carrying several boxes. The boxes were filled with expensive fruits and imported snacks. It was clear Caleb had bought a lot to appease Lily. When they came in, I was curled up on the couch watching TV. I deliberately didn't look Caleb's way, but he came over on his own. At first, he didn't speak, just pursing his lips as if waiting for my reaction. But I kept my eyes fixed on the TV, not even glancing his way. "Arya, you clearly saw me bring in all these things. Why didn't you come help?" I gave him an indifferent look. "Why should I help you? The stuff wasn't bought for me. What does it have to do with me?" His expression darkened. "If you want something, just say so. If word gets out that my fiancé is so desperate for a few trinkets, people will laugh at me." Caleb completely ignored what I'd said at the mall. I couldn't be bothered to keep emphasizing to him that I wouldn't marry him. He'd understand completely. On the wedding day, Caleb casually picked up a box of blueberries and tossed it next to me. Due to the force, the box bounced off the couch and fell to the floor. "A reward for you. Don't say I'm a street you." I looked down at the box of blueberries, but had no desire to pick it up. Because if I did, I'd be like a begging dog eagerly accepting Caleb's handouts. I don't need that kind of charity. I curled my lips in a cold smile. "You're quite at home in my house. Don't you have any sense of being a guest?" Don't embarrass your family's upbringing. We'd grown up together and were certainly familiar with each other's homes. I'd never said such insulting words before. Caleb's face turned red with anger. He looked at me like he wanted to eat me alive. My parents weren't home yet, and the staff were busy with their own tasks. Only Caleb, Lily and I were left in the living room. Caleb acted like I didn't exist, pressing Lily against the wall and giving her a quick kiss. He murmured, "Lily, in the future, if anything upsets you, just tell me directly. Don't let it hurt your health." Lily's coquettish voice reached my ears. I know Caleb always treats me the best. As Lily responded to him, the two started kissing passionately, their intimate sounds making one blush. I turned off the TV and walked around the couch, deliberately taking a path farther from them to reach the stairs, intending to return to my room. When I was halfway up the stairs, Caleb suddenly opened his eyes. Remembering there was another person present, he instinctively pushed Lily away. Lily didn't notice his change, just reluctantly ending the kiss. Finally, Lily lipped up at me, her eyes full of provocation and disdain, as if showing off her victory. Back in my room, I received a message from Lily's sister. "Even though Caleb promised you a wedding, the title of Mrs. Johnson will only ever be mine. Arya, whatever outcome you got in your past life, you'll get the same. This life, you can't beat me." Seeing this message, my heart suddenly skipped a beat. So I wasn't the only one who had been reborn in my past life. After Caleb accepted the engagement, I thought he had been moved by my sincerity. After all, I had chased after him for over a decade. Even a rock should have been warmed up by now, right? I never expected that. He only accepted the marriage to thoroughly humiliate me at the wedding too. In front of all the guests, he tightly held Lily's hand. He announced to everyone that he could never marry me, that Lily was the only one he loved and would marry in this life. I was utterly humiliated, standing alone in my wedding dress, trapped in awkward emotions. Everyone in our social circle knew how much I liked him. I had even made myself deathly ill just to get my parents to agree to an engagement with the Johnson family. I had lowered myself so much, shaming myself and my parents, only to be repaid with Caleb's revenge. He resented me for using my family's status to force an engagement, making him and Lily separate. I also passed away from illness. I never want to experience that kind of suffering again. So after being reborn, I gave up on Caleb and chose his brother Ethan instead. But I never expected that this time my marriage to Ethan would proceed so smoothly. There were no obstacles. I just had to wait patiently for the wedding next month to arrive on schedule. In my past life, Ethan had always worked abroad and never married. Everyone thought he had some unspeakable issue. Even my grandfather asked me to confirm again when he heard I decided to marry Ethan. Was I really sure I wanted to marry Ethan? I nodded, even if he had some physical problem. So what if I had to choose between them? A life of mutual respect was far better than one full of scars. The next day I went to the jeweler to pick up the wedding rings for Ethan and me, but the staff informed me that the rings had already been taken by Mr. Caleb Johnson. This jewelry store was under the Johnson Group. If Caleb wanted to take them, the staff couldn't stop him. Out of all the couple's rings, he just had to take my wedding rings. Anger suddenly flared up inside me because those rings were my own design. Since childhood, I'd had a dream of wearing rings. I designed myself at my wedding to the man I loved. In the past, I thought the man wearing the matching ring would be Caleb. But now that the groom had changed, I'd torn up that old design and made a new one specially for Ethan. Yet Caleb had snatched them away. Just as I was about to call Caleb to demand an explanation, I suddenly saw Lily's new post on social media, a one-of-a-kind ring from my beloved. The photo showed her and Caleb wearing the rings I had designed. People flooded the comments with congratulations. My eyes unconsciously welled up with tears. Even if the arranged marriage had once troubled Caleb, I had already backed out in time and given him his freedom. Why did he have to keep humiliating me and even let Lily take my wedding rings? I couldn't wait another second. I didn't want to argue with Caleb over the phone, so I took a cab straight to Caleb's office. Caleb wasn't in his office, but Lily was there when she saw me. Her eyes showed no surprise, as if she had expected I would come demand an explanation. Lily kept fiddling with the ring on her finger, occasionally pouting. "Sister, what do you think of the ring Caleb gave me?" She shook her head as she spoke. "I think it's ugly as sin, but since Caleb gave it to me, I love it. I love anything he gives me." Hearing her words, I couldn't help but clench my fists. "Sister, do you think if I wear this ring to your wedding, I'll steal your spotlight? After all, the diamond Caleb gave me is definitely bigger than whatever ring you'll have." Something snapped in my mind. I rushed forward to grab the ring from her hand. So Lily and I ended up in a tussle. The moment I got the ring off her finger, I felt a sharp blow to my waist. Someone kicked me hard, sending me sprawling on the ground in pain. So intense I could barely breathe. Tears leaked from the corners of my eyes as I stubbornly turned my head, gritting my teeth as I glared at the petite woman now cradled in Caleb's arms. "You crazy woman, How dare you lay hands on Lily? Don't you know her health is fragile? The pain spreading up from my waist was nothing compared to the ache in my heart. Caleb didn't bother scolding me further, focused on comforting the distraught Lily. Caleb, I can't believe it. If you hadn't arrived in time, would my sister have beaten me to death? His gaze fell on Lily as he gently wiped away her tears, his movements tender and attentive. Caleb's brows were tightly furrowed, his eyes rimmed with red. Lily, don't worry, I won't let that crazy woman near you alone. Again, I won't allow anyone to hurt you, even if it's the Wilson family's daughter. I'll turn against them if they so much as touch a hair on your head. Caleb really went to extremes for Lily's sake. Many people at Johnson Group knew me, including his secretary. The secretary helped me up, but Caleb angrily berated her, who said you could help her go to accounting and get your final paycheck. Don't come in tomorrow. The secretary stood there stunned. Before, reluctantly leaving the office, I clutched my waist, my face flushed red. Just thinking about this humiliating situation made me want to cry. I laughed, mockingly at myself. Each laugh blurred my vision a little more with unheeded tears. He fired his secretary who helped me? Without a second thought, did Caleb really hate me to this extent? Crazy woman, you still have the nerve to laugh. Caleb demanded. I told you I would never like you. So why do you keep hurting the person I love? I stubbornly refused to back down. Are you blind? She's the one who stole my things. Caleb hesitated for a moment, but after glancing at Lily's pitiful expression, he impatiently scolded me. It's just a ring. It was meant for me anyway. What's wrong with her having it? Since it was meant for me, I sneered. You must not have a mirror. Or even a puddle to look in. Check yourself. Your ego is way too big. I almost blurted out that the ring was meant for Ethan, but I suddenly remembered Ethan would be back tonight. I would thoroughly humiliate Caleb at the family dinner. I pressed a hand to my waist, each step difficult and painful. His voice came from behind me. Come to the family dinner on your own tonight. I don't have time to pick you up. I left the office without looking back, a faint smile still on my lips, laughing at his conceit, and even more at my own pathetic state. It's fine. I don't need him to pick me up. He'll understand soon enough that my life will have nothing to do with him from now on.